guest today is Veola Momon. She is magnificent. She is the author of PreNups for the Poor Man. This should be a delightful and fun interview. Please welcome Veola Momon.
Thank you, Rebecca. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure to have you, and I'm sure it's going to be the joyous pleasure of everybody that's listening today. Your title is captivating.
Yes. The title is something that captivated me when it came to me.
What constituted the emotional pull that caused you to write this book?
Well, today we experience a lot of confusion in our relationships, and not just today, but my life itself has been something that caused me to want to understand more about how a relationship works. So I began to evaluate myself, and I began to look at the problems that were there and the things that were problems in my marriages and why those problems were there. Looking at the many TV shows today, I can see that we need answers for the problems in our relationships.
It is very true that if we understood how to make better agreements and keep them and to actually map out what we want, sometimes people don't even know what they want, and then they wonder why they didn't get it.
That's true. That's true. PreNups for a Poor Man is about relationships. And it goes into any relationship that you can think of that individuals have today. But this really talks to couples, individuals that meet, like each other, want to carry it to another level of seriousness, and then even think about marriage. And so PreNups is written for that because it will help prevent those that are planning on getting married, or help them to look at those things that take place in marriages that can destroy one. So it's about little things that no one ever talk about before marriage. As like you said, it's a fun book, and we should have a good time talking about it today, because that's what this is all about: developing good relationships and preventing bad relationships.
That's marvelous. We all want that. It's magnificent to be honest and think about what we really need. People often assume that making an agreement before getting married belongs only to those that are wealthy. But what have we if we have not ourselves? That's where our wealth lies. And how can we maintain it and the love and joy that we seek in life?
That's exactly right. There are those prenups for those that are wealthy, so that if they get a divorce, that person gets so much and that other person keeps so much. But we forget about the individuals that don't have wealth. What wealth do they have? They have themselves. They have what they started with, and then when they end up in court, they end up fighting over who's going to get this or who's going to get that. So prenups prevent all of that. And so it's something that when you take a very close look at it, it will open up things that no one ever thought about looking at before, that really started out being a problem, a small thing, but ended up being a big problem in the marriages and relationships. It's called not really knowing each other.
What are the biggest things that you run into that people need to know?
The biggest thing I run into that people need to know are the little things. They are little bitty things that really tear a relationship up. You know, we have relationships with flowers, we have relationships with trees, we have relationships with our cars, animals, and we are so intense on understanding what it takes in order to maintain all of those things. However, when it comes to ourselves, we don't look at those little bitty things that it takes in order to maintain ourselves, to keep it looking good and flourishing and growing. And for example, when a person meet another person, what do they really think about them? You know, that's an offset of things. Do they want to just get to know them, or do they look at them physically? You know, that's the beginning of it. Prenups talk about the beginning when you meet somebody. It talks about after you meet them. It talks about what do you think about them? Where do you want to carry it? And, you know, it goes over into many different, about 22 different levels of how to develop a relationship.
So it leads them carefully into comprehending the other person's values as well and what is important to them.
Yes, it does.
Yes. And unless they have a guide, sometimes they don't think about the other person. They're thinking only about their own, perhaps.
Well, that's exactly right. Selfishness is what brought all of the many different shows we have on television today. The judges making judgment over those that move in together after knowing somebody for 2 or 3 days and loaning them thousands of dollars. You know, so it makes for a good TV show. But what we've got to do is realize that our relationships they're the ones that's the backbone of our society, because our relationships goes from just meeting someone to being serious about someone, getting married to them, and developing the family. Our families are being destroyed simply because we're not taking the time to care about what we're doing and the kind of relationship we're developing. So prenups is like a wake-up call to individuals for them to evaluate things as they're stepping over into the relationship, to look at, well, that didn't matter to me before, but it matters to me now. And some of the little things is like, do you ever wear dress shoes? Because some guys and girls, all they wear is sneakers. And then when they're wearing them, when they're dating, it's one thing. But then if they get married, then all they're still wearing is sneakers. Well, you can't wear those sneakers to church. You can't wear those sneakers to this formal party, you know. And so it creates a problem. Well, you can't go with me, you know. So it's just a book of questions that ask the other person along the way. It's like you have a book and I have a book. And so we're asking each other these questions about ourselves in the many different categories that range from when we first met all the way up to just before we get married, you know. And like I said, it's like 22 parts of evaluating different stages of the relationship.
That's interesting. It probably helps them. Marriage can often be looked at like a carriage. You take 2 horses and you hitch them to the same carriage, and when the carriage pulls apart, you start blaming one of the horses when they were never headed the same direction to start with.
That's exactly right. And you know, I have something that I truly believe in, and that is, inside of us, we have questions that we wonder about the other person, as well as the other person doing the same about us. But if we never ask the question, a question never asked is one that's unanswered, and you will never know. So therefore, it's time for us to begin to ask the question. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to want to know. And then if a person is apprehensive about giving that information, then that also is an answer to us. What is it you're hiding? What is it you don't want to tell me about? You know, are you serious? And we get into relationships that we take it as serious and the other person doesn't take it as serious. And so we get caught up into many different aspects of relationships that end up hurting someone or not giving clear explanation. Let's not go this far. I just like you and I don't want to be serious. You know, so we have to ask questions along the way as far as where we're going to go with it. Now, I did also bring some sample questions in some of the areas by which we can look at, you know, and create answers for our problems.
A lot of people don't understand that if they never mention something, how is the other person going to know that it's important to them?
That's true. We want to have this persona of I can get along with you, or we can get along if I don't ever question what you do. But that's when we get to the point where we are allowing the other person to control things that they want to do and things that you want to do. And we never say, well, no, you know, if we want to go to the movie tonight, well, then tomorrow night, let's just walk in the park. And if you like walking in the park, I think the other person should be just as cordial with your likes as well as you are with his likes. And so when we find that a person is not wanting to be a part of what we like, then there's a problem right there, because it's a sharing relationship, and we should enjoy what the other person is enjoying, especially if we enjoy that person.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I've heard a lot of people express that they don't get along in relationships because they have to become an appendage to someone else's life and forfeit their own. That's not a relationship. That's a bondage.
Right, that's exactly right. And that's why the prenups for a poor man is something to look at. It goes through questions that most people never think about asking in the beginning. Like if you did meet someone, and then after you sat down, you say, well, I'd like to get to know you just a little bit better. And, what were the thoughts you had about me when we met? And after we met and it seemed like we are getting along, do you think that we could carry this into a more serious relationship? You got to ask and talk about these things along the way. And then you want to get to know what that person is like in their life, because you're taking two different lives and putting them together to enjoy. And so you want to know something about them, and they should know something about you. And then when you begin to get into that personal part of your life, then you want to know, well, are you heterosexual? Are you gay, bisexual? These are questions we don't even think about asking at the time when we're meeting someone and getting to know them. Do you have children, and how many do you have? And it's obvious when the guy's meeting the lady and she carries him home and her children are there, but the lady never know anything about the guy. And so we've got to take time and ask these questions about what's going on in your life, so that if you get married, then all of a sudden there's this child or there are these children. Well, I thought you knew. No, it's not you thought you knew. You have to discuss. You have to inquire. And so what's wrong with asking those questions in the beginning? Do you use cocaine? If you use cocaine, why do you use it? Do you use profanity? These are the things that are little things that begin to erupt after a relationship is getting underway. Do you like responsibilities, and do you plan? What are your goals? Very, very important things. The personal habits of a person. How often do you shower? How often do you brush your teeth? Because it's important that we make a judgment on these things as to whether or not we want to be with that person or not.
In other words, you're telling all of us, that we should get to know each other better before we get to know each other better.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I think if we can have books to read about many other things, if we have a car and we look how to care for your car, use this type of wax on it before you put any other type on. When you have flowers, use this type of soil for
enjoy your downtime and your together time.
That's exactly right. We need to understand how a person feel about their community. We need to understand how a person feel about their family, how they like to celebrate during the holidays, how they feel about the government. We need to understand all of these things, because when you get into a serious relationship and you join your lives, you should have asked me. I would have told you these kind of things, to me, are things that even if you get a preview of what a person think about certain things, do you like to pay your bills on time? Do you like saving money? How many children do you plan on having? Is it important to you to go to church? And, what is your belief? So many different things that we never think about to inquire, because these are many things that I was faced in relationships. And when you bump heads like that, you tend to wonder, like, wait a minute, well, why are you reacting that way? So get the reaction out of the way in the beginning. And
that money and or the lack of it, how you make your money, your religion or the lack of it, how you handle your religion, your children or the lack of them, whether or not you want any, are big issues people often don't even talk about. You're right.
That's right. Do you like animals? Do you have animals? Do you want animals? What do you feel about the New Age movement? Do you like alarm clocks? A lot of people like to just sleep late, and then all of a sudden when they get up running. someone else is a person that like to be on time with everything, you've got to make certain that when you have all of these differences, that the other person can deal with them, because you know you can love a person and just enjoy what they like or don't like, but at the same time you understand that you've already discussed it and that's what he enjoyed doing or that's what she enjoyed doing, and you can get along much better.
So when a person's likes and dislikes come up against your feelings of safety or security or against your own convictions, then there's the seed for a big problem.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The safety of individuals, to me, should come before anything else, because there's no question as to whether or not, if there's a fire taking place, you know, whether you like fires or not, you want to try to save that person, or you want to do everything you can to help whoever it is that may be in danger. Your likes and dislikes is something that you can hopefully get over, but that thing about safety is, it just plays so much of a more important part than anything. And your health. Your health is something that you need to talk about too. A person can get sick and they don't have the support that they need. So how would you feel if I really got ill? Would you be there for me? Would you be there for me if you were going through the change of life and I was going through the change of life? How do you feel about that? So you'll get a preview of all of the things that you can make a decision over.
There's also a big wide band of disruption when people come into various concepts of irresponsibility. Is there an area in your book that helps people realize whether or not that person they think they're in love with is a responsible person?
Yes, I have questions regarding all of that, simply because it does ask about, do you like paying bills, responsibility about household chores, what is the responsibilities, what do you feel that a woman should do as far as responsibilities, what do you feel is the responsibility of women, how do you like to pay your bills, do you believe in credit cards, do you plan on going back to school, do you, everything that covers all section of what we will go through or what I have been through as an individual, and most of us have been through. It covers every area, asking questions about responsibility, because then you will get an opportunity to see where that person is. But there is something that's even a little bit better than that in the book. At the end of the book, once you've gone through all of these areas, you will have the opportunity to sign at the end of it. If it's a husband and wife renewing their vows to each other, or if it's just a couple that's serious and they have committed that these are the things I like and these are the things that we will work on and these are the things that you can accept me as an individual. But at the end of it, it says something like, now that we have come to this point and we find that we are not able to get along in our relationships, that we're willing to, and they have throughout the book, they have places by which they can add things, because all the questions are not here. And as they're going through it, they'll be able to add additional things, questions, and that they can ask each other and write in, as well as add to the end of the book, where the signing of the contract between the two of them is saying that after going through all of this, and we have come to this agreement, then I see whereas if there is a problem and we should get a divorce, then we can, and they can put whatever they want to in there as far as dividing their property that they had when they came into the marriage and how to divide the money. They can add anything they want to and then get somebody to witness that. And so instead of going through the problem of divorce court, they would have that contract. He has one and she has one that says that this is how we will resolve it and we stand by this. And so therefore that eliminate a lot of problems. So if you're going to divorce, fill out the papers and let that be the contract which you stand by. So it's a contract of understanding who it is you're getting involved with, and they committing themselves to these are the things that I've given to you for you to understand about me and that we've agreed upon. But there are many places in here to write, and responsibility is definitely in there because it's a two-sided street, his and hers.
That's wonderful, because then it helps create, and it does create, a personalized contract for the individuals reading it, because they can add to
Yeah.
whatever they need to
Yes.
fulfill their own personal desires and direction.
Yes. And so it will also spawn questions that's inside of them that they've already wanted to ask anyway. And it's not everything here that need to be asked, but you know, sometimes when you can shake it a little bit, then the rest of it start coming loose, and more questions start coming up, and thoughts about, well, what about this and what about that? But it's really something to begin to help us look at. There's a problem with relationships, and unless we begin to have something to start working at changing that, to understand that, then it's going to continue. And see, this is not meant for everyone. This is meant for those that are serious about making a change in our society. Our family life is being diminished, something seriously. And what we've got to do is find this little thing and that little thing, continue to add little blocks to it, to bring together an understanding that we've got to do something about this. And whatever I can contribute to wake up and open up and give understanding to a few people, then it's worth writing this. But this came from me knowing that there had to be a better solution in developing a relationship.
Well, you're absolutely correct, because after all, it's the relationship that is the foundation in the beginning of a family.
That's
And
right.
it is the family and the family life and the family culture that mirrors eventually the condition of the country. And the condition of our country is in trouble. And
That's
you
right.
have found a wonderful way, a heartwarming way, to help us reach across and find that compatibility that everybody needs. Whether they stay in a relationship or not, they need to find their values and what they really want.
You know, back in, I don't know if you can see this little thing right here. Back in about 2001, I bought a car. And after I bought that car and I got home and went into it to start it, it didn't start. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And I bought another battery and then it started. And then something happened to that. Now, this I saved and I've had it for years simply because I use it as an example of how little things can create big problems. And all this is inside of this is a little bitty bulb that was on in the trunk of my car, that when I got it home and turned it off, and all during the night, it sucked the energy out of my battery. And I say this bulb as a reminder is that the little things that we don't pay attention to that can create big problems in our lives if we don't stop and look at it. Now, until we begin to look at these little bitty things in our lives that destroy something big and something that can be very, very loving and kind in our lives, until we start looking at them and taking them very serious, then we'll run into some serious problems. There are men that love to have their toes picked and hair cut and their fingernails done by their girlfriends or their wives. And some women will do it to start, as I did, but then after they get through it, it's every night, every day. And then you get tired, you figure, how can I get out of this? Even if it means divorce, you know? But it's those little things that we run into, and those questions are in there. Are you willing to put aside money if you want your toenails cut and your fingers manicured and your head scratched? Are you willing to put money aside in the budget so that you can go to a pedicure, to go and get all of those things done? See, and those are things to think about, little things like that.
Is it temporary during courtship, or is it forever and ever? Amen.
That's right. And see, those things can become so annoying that the other person expect that that's the duty. That's part of your duty. And you're thinking like, no, this isn't. And then you get this argument, well, you used to do it. And I'm thinking like, wow. And it's important. It's very important to save our family to present something like this. Look at it, read it, help, let's save this society of ours. It's worth it.
So each individual must learn to find that point which they can love and appreciate each other without it becoming a required and monotonous service. It has to just be a heartfelt acceptance as you go through life with its changes.
Yes, yes. And if you want to do his toes or his hair occasionally to have that intimate time together, to feel close, let that be something you choose, unless he's going to do the same for you, So there's a balance there. But this book brings it to life. It brings everything to life. I just cannot tell you how wonderful it is because I covered as much as I could. But there are many different situations that individuals have experienced that they can just continue to add to it. But it's the beginning.
And if you don't say anything till it gets so intolerable you have to leave, they wonder what happened.
That's right.
Thank you, Veola, for such a delightful interview. I'm sure that your book is going to be fun for everybody that reads it. PreNups for the Poor Man. Marvelous. Great title. Great incentive to read it. I'm sure it'll help a lot of people. Thank you again for bringing your wisdom to our interview.
Thank you, Rebecca. I have really enjoyed this interview, and especially talking about PreNups for Poor Man because it is a fun book. I look forward to having many more with you. Thank you again.
And thank you.